Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the marvelous Mr. Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. You know what, youngster, today there might be some background noise. I told you earlier in the week my window fell off track. It's really humid up here. There's no way I can do this show tonight with all the windows closed. No way. You know I do it. I text you. We'll record when I get into the traffic jam, so I'm not going like 50 miles an hour, but you may hear some honking, you may hear some brakes squealing, you may hear people yelling and loud music in the background. That's because I need to have my passenger side window open. I apologize, but I think it'll add a little ambiance to the show. So how are you today?
I'm doing good. It's been a weird week for me because I have had off of my stock job, my early morning stock job. I usually work that Tuesday to Friday, and this week I only work Friday morning. I've got other jobs and other things I do, but it's been weird not having to wake up at 5 o'clock, and I know, Troy, you get up early, so I'm
already in my first account at 5 o'clock, youngster. That's on top of an hour drive.
So to not have to wake up that early, I mean.
Yeah, 2:30 a.m. 2:30 a.m. every day, and the coffee is brewing.
Yep.
You get used to it after a while.
Yeah, that's true. But imagine, like, not having to do it for, like, 3-4 days straight.
I've tried on the weekends, and my internal alarm clock is already set. Like, I'll wake up. Like, I won't wake up at 2:30. I do have to set an alarm because that is really early in the morning. But on the weekend, I'm up at 4 a.m. Literally, I'm up. Like, I'm wide awake, and there's some weekends where it's been a long week, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm late for work. Oh, my God, I got to get in the car. And I'm like, oh, sheesters, it's Saturday.
The sheesters.
Yeah, the sheesters.
Sheesters.
Yeah, sheesters. Well, let's get to it, youngster. Big weekend in the Big Ten. Like always, we're going to go through the AP Top 25. Talk about last week's Big Ten games, and then look forward to this week. We didn't have a lock of the week last week, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, my opening little statement here, it's not really an opening statement, but my opening topic here, the only thing I have for notes, really. Actually, there's two, but just one, mainly. You locked Nebraska against Wisconsin last week. I did not. Nebraska was plus 20. Against Wisconsin. You said that was too much, and Nebraska covered. Nebraska lost by, 17? Yeah, 17. So they covered. So you did a nice job there, Troy. If people would have listened to you, which I don't know how many people would have.
Probably not after the way we've started this year. Nobody's. Again, we told them to go opposites. They probably lost all their money. They probably took Wisconsin.
Yeah, they probably bet like $15,000. They're like, hey, old man's going one way, so I'll throw $15,000 this way. Regardless, so anyway, good job on that one. I had no locks, and again, together, Go Big or Go Home lock of the week. We did not have one last week. We'll see about this week. The AP top, before the top 25. The other thing I want to mention, something we haven't really ever talked about on the show, is how injury depleted Michigan State has been, and it showed a lot against Northwestern in week 6. And they lost by 10. That was the only upset, I think, of the weekend, I believe. Yes, I think it was. Otherwise, things went according to plan. There was nothing really that was surprising other than Northwestern beating Michigan State at Michigan State by 10 points. But so I just wanted to mention that I saw the stat out here. Not only is their starting running back out, and I'm going to miss a few injuries, but their starting running back's been out for a couple games, and they have had a different starting offensive line combination for every single game so far this season. That's hard to, and it's not just one guy here, one guy there. It's like multiple guys. There's just no continuity whatsoever. And we do another show on Saturdays, and we talk about the Browns for a few minutes every single weekend, and we thought that their new patchwork offensive line was going to work a lot better than it ended up doing so a year ago when they didn't win a single game. And they brought in some talent, but there was just no continuity there. And it's kind of the same thing. It's different, but it's the same situation where there's no continuity going on with Michigan State. And whether it's offensively, whether it's defensively, just guys being nicked up, guys missing games, guys missing the season, there's just a number of injuries, and I think the offensive line leads to an inept running game, which you usually don't see from Michigan State. There's been defensive injuries as well. So that has led to not a fantastic defense from Michigan State to this point. I just think that we're seeing part of it is schedule. We knew that Michigan State wasn't going to really grow on last year's record like people thought just because of the schedule. But another part of it is just never having continuity on the offensive line, not having your starting running back, not having multiple starting defenders. It's just a whirlwind of injuries. And so every team gets hurt, but I think this is a legitimate case where it's like this is truly impacting this team more than most out there in the country. Don't know if you have anything to add there, Troy. Otherwise, I'll get into the top 25.
No, not a whole lot there, but we talked about how important offensive lines are, especially in the college game, Kevin. If you have a really good offensive line, a.k.a. Wisconsin, you can do a lot of things, even with an average quarterback. And if you have a good running back, I'm not even going to say a great running back. If you have a good running back behind a very good offensive line, that running back's going to do very well.
Right.
And Taylor's a good running back. Would I put him in a class of great? Some can debate, right, because he's a Heisman hopeful. But I'm also a realist that if you put Jonathan Taylor on maybe a mid-tier Big Ten team, is he going to run for 200 yards?
Right.
Maybe not. He's running behind arguably the best offensive line or one of the top lines in the country. And so offensive lines to me are a little bit underrated, and I don't think they get talked about far enough on any shows. Because especially in the college game, look at how many great quarterbacks are made because of an offensive line. Then they go to the NFL and they can't do anything because they're running for their life. They don't have 5 seconds to throw the ball. Or running backs, too. You know, look at Wisconsin running back history, Kevin. If you go back and look at all of the very good running backs that Wisconsin had, Ron Dane had some success. Really, the only one having really true success is Melvin Gordon. But to me, he's a different type running back. He is more of that versatile pass-catching, can-run-the-ball running back, so he doesn't necessarily have to run between the tackles. But if you go back and look at all of the really good running backs in Wisconsin history and follow their career into the NFL, the true running backs didn't do great things in the NFL, partly because Wisconsin always has a really good offensive line. I just wanted to add that. Yeah, no,
I think the offensive line makes everyone better. When you've got a good one, it makes everything go much smoother. Even a center to have that continuity with a quarterback and be the guy in charge of the offensive line can help even an average offensive line. I think if you've got an average offensive line that plays together for 16 games in the NFL, it's bound to get better. It's not just going to plateau and just stay put and be stagnant and just not get better. If you keep playing with each other for 4 straight months, things are going to get a little better at the least, just based on communication, experience, and knowing the guy next to you. I mean,
you bring up a good point, youngster, about continuity. Because if you're playing with the same 5 guys, there's the nonverbal things that you learn about a guy that's next to you. You know his strengths. You know his weaknesses. You pretty much can pick up schemes looking at the defense, knowing, hey, you know what? The youngster is right there, and on a blitz, I know the youngster is bad to his left. So maybe I'll chip this guy and help him out. Little things like that. Yeah. It's not one person winning their battle, which you have to. They'll always say you got to win your individual battle. But the really great offensive lines are 5 cohesive men working together, having each other's back. That's what great offensive lines do. Just had to chime in there. I won't chime in anymore here, youngster, on your point.
No, yeah, I'm good to go there. Just wanted to mention it with Michigan State because it is something it's happening for them. So if we do not talk about it whatsoever, it's kind of a disservice. To move on to the top 25, Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2, nothing new there. Ohio State still at 3, nothing new there. Clemson at 4, nothing new there. Finally, there's some change. Notre Dame moved up to 5. West Virginia is up to 6. Washington is up to 7. They're the top one-loss team, and right behind them is Penn State at 8. Penn State had a bye this past week. They were 11 a week ago. Now they're number 8, based on teams ahead of them losing, like Oklahoma, for example. LSU is another, and Auburn was another one. So Penn State's all the way up to 8. It's kind of hard to see them possibly making a college football playoff because Ohio State would have to lose twice for Penn State to even get into the Big Ten title game. So it's rough based on who they lost to. But Penn State is up at 8. Texas is up to 9. UCF is up to 10. That's the highest I think they ever were even last year. I think to close last year after beating Auburn in the bowl game, they were in the top 10. But otherwise, I don't think they were ever in the top 10 a year ago. Oklahoma 11, Michigan is up to 12 now. So for the Big Ten, you got Ohio State at 3, Penn State 8, Michigan is up to 12, Wisconsin's at 15, and I think, yes, that is it for the Big Ten. The only other thing I wanted to mention, Michigan State was 20 a week ago. Obviously, they lost Northwestern, like I said. They dropped out. They're not even receiving votes anymore. Iowa is the top and others receiving votes, so they're the number 26 team in the country, if you want to call it that. But that's it for the Big Ten. You've got Ohio State at 3, Penn State 8, Michigan 12, Wisconsin 15. And all 4 of those teams are good. You've seen them be good. You know what they're good at. Some of them are improving, obviously, in certain areas. But in any case, Michigan State right now is just not really a true top 25 team. They're not. Iowa has its days. That's why they're on the fringe. But that's the AP top 25. You got anything there, Troy? Otherwise, I will move on to week 6.
No, not really. I mean, it's one of those things. We're plugging along here in the season. And so it's getting closer and closer to the college football playoff ranking. That's the one that matters.
Those are the ones that actually mean something because those are those rankings are what gets teams into the top 4, not the AP. No one cares about the AP. Like a month from now, no one's going to care about the AP ranking.
No, and that's why you know me. I could care less about the preseason poll. And even the poll that comes out during the season, we talked about it last year on the show. A lot of it to me is bias and what sports writers can see, hear, because they don't watch every game, nor do we watch every Big Ten game as we do our show, Kevin. So right. I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying that these voters sometimes they're basing it off of a score. They're basing it off of an article. Maybe an article the youngster wrote. Who knows? You never know.
Could be.
Could be. But it's just, to me, it's biased. It's not a true poll. Whereas the college football ranking, these are the experts that are ranking teams, looking at trends, looking how they're playing, looking at injuries, looking at everything under a microscope. So when that comes out, that's the important one. But, the 4 teams that are in the top 25, we kind of figured they would be.
Yep.
I know Wisconsin had that stunning upset loss, which ruined their season as far as getting to a possible championship. But my thoughts. I didn't think they were a top 4 team. So they're a good team. But, as a fan, that loss, that hurt. But let's recap last weekend's games, my friend.
Yeah, the first college football playoff rankings, by the way, they come out the last week of October, just so fans know. So that's like 3 weeks away. But anyway, we'll start with, I think that, I'm trying to remember. Whatever. Ohio State was at home against Indiana. We can start at the top of the conference, I guess. Ohio State at home against Indiana. Ohio State won the game 49-26. But going into the fourth quarter, they were up, 35-26. And then they won the fourth quarter by 14-0. Indiana made this a game. So on the road, I guess a little letdown after Penn State. But that being said, Ohio State still won the game by 23. The game after Penn State a year ago, Ohio State beat Penn State a year ago, and then they went and lost to Iowa by 30. So that was certainly in the back of their minds. I guarantee you that Urban Meyer talked about it like, hey, I think we need to wake up this year. Because the way we played last year after Penn State, it doesn't matter who we're playing, we would lose. So I think you saw a little bit of it, playing Indiana at home, being comfortable. But at the end of the day, they still scored 49 points. Dwayne Haskins still had 6 touchdowns passing, 455 yards passing, completed 75% of his passes. It's absurd what he's doing. He is through, he has at least 3 games so far this season where he has thrown at least 5 touchdown passes, and that's the first time in Big Ten history that has happened. And he's, 6 games in to his first year of starting. He is the most talented Ohio State quarterback I have seen in a long time, and I think as far as just Big Ten quarterbacks, as far as just purely throwing the ball, Russell Wilson was certainly up there. Outside of that, I can't say that I watched Drew Brees when I was 9 years old. And
I did.
Yeah. I can't appreciate Drew Brees in the Big Ten.
Actually, if we're throwing it out there, Kevin, I'm going to tell you who I thought had the best arm and maybe probably doesn't recognition because everybody's going to talk about his NFL career. But Jeff George, to me, Kevin, was a great college quarterback. But people aren't going to put him in that classification because they just look at kind of him being an average or so-so NFL quarterback. But I had a chance to watch Jeff George play. And, man, he was a scary son of a gun in college. And we've talked about this many times. You can be great college quarterback. Doesn't equate to great NFL quarterback. So I think sometimes he gets left out of that conversation when it comes to quarterbacks in college because he did have a long NFL career that was average. And I think that's what people remember. They don't go back to his college days. That guy had an arm. That guy was just flat out scary. But Drew Brees was a good one, too. So I'm old. I watch these guys play, Kevin. I'm just an old guy.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because I did not. I certainly couldn't watch Jeff George at Illinois. I had heard that he was really good. And anything
were you
that
even born when he played? I don't even think you were born.
When did he play for Illinois? I don't know. I guess I could look it up.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you were born. And if you were, you weren't. You were just in diapers. So
I'm looking it up here.
Well, let's move on. I know we got somewhat of a time constraint today.
Yes, I wasn't even born yet. He was drafted in 1990. I was born in 91. I didn't know he was picked first overall. Quarterback at Illinois was picked first overall.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Here we go again. We always kind of go off the tree branch. That's why I'm saying he was drafted so high that the expectations were put on cloud 9. And you have to remember, Kevin, I'm going to say these things going into now. We talked about this, and actually for those that are listening in, make sure you follow us on Twitter, @TroyRobert967, @KidCunny, and our show handle @YoungsterOldMan. Listen in to Saturday's show. We just talked about it, Kevin. The way that offenses are set up now, it allows rookies to be able to step in and be a little bit more successful. The way that it's set up. Back when Jeff George got drafted, you're going into the NFL where if you don't have a really good offensive line, if you don't have a running game, and you don't have a good defense, you're screwed. And that's what happened. Number 1 overall pick, you're going to a crap team.
Right.
So unless you are a special quarterback, you're not going to do well. And so I kind of think he got the short end of the stick. Drafted so high expectations, but, man, he was, in my mind, a great college quarterback. Continue.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, and obviously him being drafted number 1 overall speaks to that. You got anything on Ohio State, Indiana? Haskins has been great.
Well, it goes back to, in this game, Kevin, we've seen this many times, not just in the Big Ten, but across the country, where a top team that is favored by mega points is in a game, and the other team, it's like David versus Goliath, and they're going out there and they're playing their Super Bowl. And that's what Indiana did. And they made it a game, and then eventually the talent just takes over. And that's what happened in this game. I saw the score, watched a little bit of the game, not all of it, but I never was in doubt that Ohio State was going to win the game. And we've seen it happen many times where David versus Goliath, Super Bowl time for that team, that underdog, and then the skill just takes over by the highly ranked team in the fourth quarter, and that's exactly what happened in this game.
Yeah, that's like usually when like a 15 seed beats a 2 seed in the first round of the tournament for men's basketball, and then like the next game they play like the 7 seed and they lose by like 25 points. Because it's like you're on this huge high and this huge prep for this one team who's not going to take you that seriously. And you surprise them, you shock them, you make 6 more threes, you win the game, and then you come back 2 days later and you get killed by a team that's like not taking you lightly. And you're in the second round of the tournament. It's a whole different ballgame. Moving on, number 15, Michigan hosted Maryland. Michigan was up 27-7 going into the fourth. Eventually won 42-21. I mean, the top running back, Ron Higdon, averaged 4 yards a carry. Shea Patterson did really well. There's nothing else really for me to say. Michigan,
go Wolverines! You know my code. When I have nothing to add, I just say go Wolverines or go whatever team won.
Yep. What happened is what should have happened. Moving on, Wisconsin, Nebraska. Wisconsin was up 20-3 at halftime, and then from that point on, it was 21-21. So 41-24 was the final score. Adrian Martinez had some gaudy passing numbers, but this game was never close. Jonathan Taylor, 24 carries, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. I
want to know what happened to Wisconsin in this game, Kevin, because they totally went against the anomaly that I've been telling people. They usually start out slow. They usually let teams hang around. They went out and they forced their will upon Nebraska immediately. What did Taylor end up with, 203 yards, something like that?
221, yeah.
221. I knew it was 200. But I was surprised that they went out and actually it seemed like they played with a little bit more intensity to start the game. They were a little more crisp. They just went out and was like, we're tired of letting teams hang around. And then it was like a flip-flop of halves, where in the second half, they let Nebraska do some things, but the game was already well in control at that time. And so at halftime, you talked about me saying take Nebraska in the points. I wasn't so sure at halftime. I'm like, holy cow. If Wisconsin comes out and plays 30 more minutes like this, they'll win by 50.
Yep.
So it was nice to see as a Badger fan, and I'm talking as a fan now, not as a radio show host, to see that they came out and they actually came out crisp, they came out clean, and they forced their will upon Nebraska, which they should have. I mean, this is one of the games where Nebraska's in flux, and Wisconsin should have done what they did in the first half. And then the second half, it kind of got boring to me, actually. And that's even a fan saying that. Just kind of got boring at that point because it was clear and very evident that Wisconsin was head and shoulders above the talent level of Nebraska. That's all I got.
Yeah, completely agreed. I was working during it, and that's what I was saying back and forth to my coworkers was it's like, oh, Wisconsin's actually going to win this game by like 35 points because that's how it was going, exactly what you just said. Last thing I want to mention here, J.D. Spielman, the wide receiver for Nebraska, had 9 catches, 209 yards, and a touchdown in this game. He's had a good year to begin with. This game, 200 yards receiving is nothing to laugh at. He is a sophomore, so I just think that the Martinez-Spielman connection for Nebraska going forward is going to be something in the next year or two. It's something going right for Nebraska there. Defensively, again, they need an overhaul defensively. Moving on, Michigan State hosted Northwestern. Northwestern won the game 29-19. This one was close throughout. It was 14-6 at half. Going into the fourth, it was 22-19. Michigan State just couldn't ever really get anything going offensively. And Northwestern, Clayton Thorson led the day through the air, 31 of 47, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. Against the Michigan State defense on the road, I mean, it just goes to show that Michigan State is not what they potentially could be. And I think what they potentially could be is like the 15th best team in the country. I don't think they can be fantastic, but I think they can be pretty good. And they just haven't shown it this year because of the things we talked about basically to start the show. The leading rusher in this game had 2 carries for 50 yards. There were obviously more players that got more than 2 carries, but it goes to show you what was working and what was not. And Thorson throwing for 373 yards. I mean, that's, Northwestern was able to throw the ball. Michigan State couldn't do anything. That's the general recap of that one.
Well, I'm going to say this, Kevin. Northwestern winning to me, but we thought Northwestern was one of those middle-of-the-pack teams. But that's one of those middle-of-the-pack teams that can scare you because they do have talent. They've put together a very solid program. Again, are they going to be dominant in the Big Ten? Maybe every once in a while all the stars will align and Northwestern can try to make a magical run. But they're a good, solid program, and to me, that's one of those scary middle-of-the-pack teams in Northwestern.
Yep.
And so when you go up against the Michigan State team that's having some issues, Northwestern can do things like that. Could Northwestern beat a Wisconsin? Yeah, they could. If Wisconsin's not on top of their game and Northwestern happens to be, yeah, they can pull off those upsets. And this is where Northwestern, if they wanted to be that dominant team, can they consistently do that? And they're not there yet. But can they do it every once in a while, beat a top 20 team? Yeah, they can.
Right.
But they just can't do it week after week after week. But to me, Kevin, Northwestern is the scariest middle-of-the-pack team that the Big Ten has right now. That's all I got.
Yeah, them and Iowa to me. We saw it last year when Iowa beat Ohio State by 30. They can have those really good games, even really good seasons where they win 10, 11 games. It's not crazy uncommon for even Northwestern to win 10 nowadays. This year has been weird. But I think that overall, can Northwestern, like you said, Northwestern could beat Ohio State. Iowa could beat Ohio State. Nebraska, I guess a couple of years ago, could beat.
Not this. Don't even go there, youngster.
No, not this year. Not this year. But
maybe 2 or 3 years from now. Maybe.
Yeah. Not this year. But typically, Nebraska over the last few years has just been like an average program. Is it surprising when a team like Northwestern beats Ohio State, beats Michigan? It's surprising. It's not shocking. Shocking is Illinois beating Ohio State. Shocking is Rutgers beating Wisconsin. That's shocking. Indiana beating Michigan, Indiana beating Penn State. That's shocking. But for like Northwestern, for Iowa, it's not a shock. It's surprising. It's an upset. But they can do it. So that's my 2 cents there. Moving on, there's, 2 more games here. Rutgers at home against Illinois. Rutgers played a football game, so they lost. Illinois won 38-17. Rutgers started their freshman quarterback. I seem to be saying that every single week. They're not going away from that. In general, this one was not really too close either. 24-14 at halftime. Then Illinois just kind of stepped on the gas pedal in the fourth quarter. No one scored in the third. Illinois is better defensively. Illinois has more players offensively that can do things. Illinois is just a step ahead of Rutgers. That's what it is. And Illinois going on the road in the Big Ten and winning by 21 points. I mean, that goes to show you how bad Rutgers is now.
This was the battle to stay out of the bottom.
Yep.
That's what it was. And I have nothing else to say except go Illini.
We also talked a week ago about how the athletic director at Rutgers, and I didn't see anything after this game, but athletic director at Rutgers a week ago said, hey, at least we fought hard and my players really tried, basically is what he said. This week, I don't know. I didn't watch a single second of this game. I was following along. I didn't watch a second of it, but I know it was never close. So, yeah, Rutgers, bottom of the Big Ten. I think we already knew that. At this point, last game, Minnesota at home against Iowa. Iowa's offense had been struggling basically the entire year, and then they throw up 48 points at Minnesota. And we all know how Minnesota does at home, don't we, Troy? Because a year ago, we all...
Well, if you noticed last week, I stayed mute on this game.
Yes, you did.
So I wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that, and here, so I'll let the cat out of the bag. Minnesota pooed the bed again. I thought this was a game that Minnesota could battle against Iowa, and they just looked like crap. So I'm glad I stayed mute, because Minnesota fans would have said, well, old man, look what you're doing. So maybe I should just wipe Minnesota clean from my mind, Kevin. Because if I would have got on the air last week, I would have talked about Minnesota, would have hyped them up, said, hey, I think Minnesota's going to beat Iowa. I would have looked like a fool again. But I did. In my mind, I thought Minnesota was going to be able to at least make it a game.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm not. I guess I mean I've been vocal in the starting portion of the season about Minnesota and how I thought they've been improving and playing hard, and PJ Fleck in the second year and how they're doing better. But in the end, it just seems like anytime I expect this team to hang with a good team, they don't. Or anytime they should beat a really bad team, they do. But if they play against a big dog, it's like they're going to be overmatched here. And then they keep it close until the fourth quarter. It's like I can't really peg this team, and neither can you for the last few years. It's not just you. I think Minnesota fans are probably like, what's
maybe I should start bashing them. Maybe I should start bashing the Gophers.
Just bash them every week.
Saying how bad they are and how they poo the bed every time that I think they're going to do something well. Yeah. They're not taking a step up, Kevin. We thought they would. But in Big Ten play, man, it's almost like they're deer in headlights. They're just not doing well in the Big Ten. So and it doesn't get any easier. I mean, Minnesota was a team that we thought was going to be in the middle of the pack. They better be careful. They keep playing like crap. They're going to be right ahead of Rutgers. Right down there. Rutgers going to be knocking on their behind. Because Minnesota's just not playing good football in the Big Ten right now.
No, they were 3-0, and now they're 0-2 in conference. They're 3-2 overall. So exactly what you said. Nate Stanley, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns passing. It's like, there's Iowa's offense actually doing something. They couldn't even run the ball, but it is what it is. You give up 48 points at home to Iowa. That's not good. Not good if you're a Minnesota fan. Like you said, Troy, I'm not sure exactly what to make of Minnesota. Speaking of which, that was the last game of Week 6, and to move on to Week 7, right at noon, Ohio State at home against Minnesota. And Ohio State, I have not looked at any of these lines, by the way. So I'm going to be going off my gut, probably just like you are, Troy, here. But Ohio State at home against Minnesota.
I'd preview it. I'd take a look. But
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, never mind. Well, then I'll stop asking you exactly what you think these lines are, since you know exactly what the heck they are.
No, I don't know. See, here's the thing. I don't. I look at the schedule. I don't look at the line.
Oh, okay.
I don't look at the lines, so I'm blind to the lines. So you can ask me. I look at the schedule. I look at the Big Ten schedule because I want to know, okay, well, what games do I really want to look for, and is there a DVR game? You know me, Kevin. I like when I look at a schedule, whether it's Big Ten, whether it's the NFL, whether it's Major League Baseball, it's like, is there a DVR game that I just can't miss? And when there's one of those, I just get real excited. And then I start like, woo, 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 get everything ready for it. But I know the schedule. I don't know any of the lines. So you continue to ask me. Sometimes I'm right on. Sometimes I'm way off, as is my life.
Yeah. I won't ask you about this one. Ohio State at home against Minnesota. Obviously, it's big. It's Ohio State by 29.5. Like always, I don't touch these kind of lines. Dwayne Haskins for the first 6 weeks of the season, averaging over 4 touchdowns passing per game. That's against TCU in Texas. That's at Penn State. I mean, he's been remarkable. They're going to put up a ton of points here, and I would almost say that they would cover. If I had to bet anything, I would say that they would cover against Minnesota, and they would win by at least 30.
This is why I stay mute on Minnesota. I mean, yeah, should Ohio State cover because Minnesota's playing like crap? They should, but this will be the game then where they kick a field goal at the end of the first half, and then whatever in the second half, and they lose by 28.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the way my luck is with Minnesota. But like you said, or I just said it, it doesn't get any easier, and there's no moral victories. I'm sorry, especially when you're talking Big Ten. Minnesota's going to be 0-3, and I didn't expect them to be 0-3 in the conference at this point, but the reality is they're going to be 0-3, and that pretty much will put them then at 500. And even if they won out, I mean, you're looking at that point then 9 wins, 9-3. But I don't think they're winning out. So you go to 3-3, and now you put don't get me started on bowl eligible because you only got to get to 500 to be bowl eligible. But what kind of bowl are they going to play in? They're going to play in the Pick-a-Two Bowl or something like that at 6-6.
The Schuster Bowl.
Yeah. The Caesar Bowl.
The Schuster Bowl.
No, the Schuster Bowl.
Schuster.
All right, let's move on.
All right. So I think we're both picking Ohio State. We're not putting any lock on it as far as the spread goes. Maryland at home against Rutgers. Maryland is favored by 25.5 points in a big
Let me just say, this is not a DVR game.
No, I won't be either. I'll be working during it. I'll be working during all these games. So I'll follow along, but I will not watch a single second of it. Maryland at home against Purdue. Maryland by 25.5. I'm going to pick Maryland to win. As far as covering, it's just a ridiculous number, so I'm not touching it.
No, I'm not locking that 25.5 in. Rutgers is bad, but Maryland can also be bad at times too.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. If Maryland goes out and plays crisp, clean football, could they beat Rutgers by 4 touchdowns? Sure, they could. They've got more talent, and Rutgers is really bad right now. But I've seen Maryland be pretty putrid at times. So I wouldn't touch this one with a 10-foot pole, which means to all the listeners out there, you should probably take Maryland in the points because the old man says don't touch it.
Yeah, probably true. Last thing on this game I want to mention, the leading passer going into this game is Rutgers' freshman quarterback. The leading rusher going into this game is Rutgers' #1 running back. The leading receiver in this game going into this game is Rutgers' receiver. Very weird. I just find it odd. It's weird. Anyway, moving on. Indiana at home against Iowa. This one to me it could be interesting. I think that Indiana and eventually losing by 23 points to Ohio State, now coming back home for a game on ESPN2 against an Iowa team. I don't know. Maybe they'll be up for it. I don't know. I guess psychology-wise, Iowa's the better team. Indiana's not too far behind, I don't think. Peyton Ramsey's been playing well for Indiana. Stevie Scott, the freshman running back, has been playing well. I think Indiana is certainly a notch below Iowa, but I don't think they're that far below. And I think that if Indiana actually plays decent defense in this game and Iowa doesn't explode for 35-plus points, which I don't really think they will, I think it'll be a close game. And Vegas thinks it'll be a close game as well. Iowa is favored by 5. My initial thought was that Iowa would win by a score or 8 or 9 or 10. But would I be willing to lock it? No, because I don't think at home in a game on ESPN, I think Indiana can absolutely hang and beat Iowa. So I could see it going either way. That's why the line is where it is. I would pick Iowa to win the game, though.
Well, there's no lock on this one because here we go. Old man falling off his rocker. Maybe it's the rock stars I drank today because I went up, Kevin, the way my day went. Normally I drink grape kickstart. I'm now drinking killer grape rock star on the way home. So maybe the rock star is kicking in. This is the old man's upset of the weekend. Indiana beats Iowa. Straight up. I like the way Ramsey played against Ohio State. And you know what? The kid's gaining confidence every week, and I think if they can control the clock, Iowa putting up that many points against Minnesota, to me, Kevin, I'll call it a fluke. I really will. Iowa doesn't put up that many points. That's like Wisconsin putting up that many points.
Right.
I think Indiana can control the clock, and I like Ramsey. I really like Ramsey. The kid's growing on me as a quarterback. And I don't want to put him in the top tier of quarterbacks in the Big Ten, but, man, every week he's doing his job.
Yeah,
he's doing his job, and I already said that I would take Ramsey over Hornibrook any day.
Oh, yeah.
I think Indiana beats Iowa, straight up. So if I'm betting, I've got Indiana +5, but I think they win this game outright. I'm taking Indiana and the points, but I think they win it outright.
I like that. This next line, to me, it seems way too good to be true. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. Northwestern is at home against Nebraska. And so you tell me, Troy, Northwestern at home against Nebraska, what do you think the line would be?
Northwestern at home against Nebraska.
Yeah.
At home against Nebraska. I'm going to say 7.5.
Oh, okay. Well, I would have said probably double digits. Northwestern's favored by 3.5. I'm willing to lock that. I think Northwestern wins by at least 4 points at home against Nebraska.
I would have locked it at 7.5.
There we go.
Nebraska's on the road.
Home lock of the week.
Yeah,
right.
We got a lock. We've got a lock, folks. We've got a lock. Ring the bell. Ding, 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 ding. We got to get some sound effects on this show. Maybe when I edit the show, I'll find a bell ringer or something and see if I can put it behind us. But, yeah, 3.5 only. Woo.
I don't get it.
Maybe
Vegas
somebody
knows.
drank a lot of Rockstar and had some heart palpitations or something.
Well, usually.
Oh, my gosh. So I was going to say 3.5?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh, well. It is what it is.
Usually
We're locking it.
When lines don't make sense, it's usually for a reason. And I don't know. I don't know the reason. I don't know if they anticipate. I don't know. I really don't. Northwestern will be able to score on Nebraska. They should be able to throw all over on Nebraska. And Nebraska should be able to score points on Northwestern, but I don't see how Northwestern doesn't win by 4 points. I mean, granted, can they win 27-24? Sure. But they should win. Everyone is crushing Nebraska. Northwestern at home? I don't know. When it's been a letdown season to this point, you just picked up a nice win on the road. Now you're coming back home. Games on ABC. I don't know. Anyway, Penn State at home against Michigan State. Penn State's favored by 13.5. I think Michigan State could be in a world of hurt here. Penn State is coming off a bye. Penn State is at home. Penn State is not down on themselves like Michigan State is. Penn State is not injury-riddled.
They moved up in the rankings by not playing 3 spots.
Yeah, I'd be very close to be willing to lock Penn State here by 2 touchdowns. But it is 2 touchdowns. It is Michigan State, so it's just in your mind it's hard. Michigan State is the more experienced team. They're just hurt. Penn State's coming off a bye. Penn State for sure wins this game at home. I don't know. I'll let you talk.
Well, here's the thing, Kevin. It's at home. It's a tough place to play for any team when you go to Penn State. They're off a bye. They're rested. They're hungry. College kids. When I was a college athlete, Kevin, and we had a bye week, it was the worst thing in the world. And I think I've shared a story once or twice. As an athlete, I hated byes because it's just practice. There's no game. There's no practice. I don't want a bye week because I can't play. I don't like practice. And so these kids at Penn State are ready to go out and rock and roll. Michigan State's banged up. They're probably going to start a different offensive line combination, as you mentioned early in the show. There's no doubt to me Penn State wins by 2 touchdowns, Kevin. I have no doubt. So maybe we shouldn't lock it, though, because when I'm that confident in something, it doesn't happen. Not this year. Last year, it all fell into place. All the sugars and spices, they were all over our cookies. This year, we're not having good luck. But Penn State should demolish Michigan State. And what I mean by demolish is they're going to dominate this game probably from the second quarter to the fourth quarter. Maybe Michigan State hangs in there in the first quarter. But going to Penn State, that 13.5-point line, Kevin, at Penn State, I absolutely would take Penn State plus the points. It was at Michigan State, maybe they win by 10. But at home, coming off a bye, the way Michigan State is playing right now, just getting, I don't want to say they got embarrassed by Northwestern, but that's a team, if you're a top 25 team, you should beat Northwestern. Even though I said Northwestern's a scary team, if you're a top 25 team, you have to show your muscles and beat Northwestern. They didn't do it. Not impressed with Michigan State right now. I take Penn State plus the points.
Yeah, I'm very close to, but there's a little hesitation there, so I'll lay off. For now, we have one Go Big or Go Home lock of the week.
Boo! Boo to the youngster.
Playing it safe with my Monopoly money. Illinois at home against Purdue.
You're letting our past failures creep into your mind.
That's true.
You're letting them creep into your mind, youngster, but carry on.
Yeah, it's true. I'll stick with that. I hesitated for a little bit for a reason, I guess. Illinois at home against Purdue. Purdue is favored by 10.5. Illinois is coming off a Big Ten win. They're at home. They'll feel good about themselves. They know that even though Purdue might be a little bit more talented in general, that Illinois is not far off. So I think you'll get a hard-fought game from Illinois. I don't know what that means, but I think it'll be hard-fought. I think Purdue wins. I don't know if they cover 10.5 because you could see Purdue win 34-24, 31-21, and still not cover. So I wouldn't lock it in. But Purdue, going with this one-quarterback system and David Blau, he's been playing really well. Rondale Moore, the freshman wide receiver, he is something to watch. I wouldn't DVR it, but at 3:30 p.m., is there any other Big Ten? No, it's the only Big Ten game on at 3:30 other than Penn State, Michigan State. Illinois, Purdue, it may sound stupid, but when Purdue's on offense, it could be fun to watch. This Rondale Moore kid is I've seen articles, I've done articles about it, on people's list for freshman offensive player of the year. He has been phenomenal. So he's just fun to watch in general, and this Purdue passing attack right now is fun to watch in general. So that'll be the game that I'll be watching at 3:30, I guess. Penn State, Michigan State features two better teams, probably. But Illinois, Purdue.
Kevin, I told you that Penn State, Michigan State game might be interesting for one quarter.
Yeah.
I really believe that. I think it's going to be a snoozer. It may not be like 52-10, but I think Penn State dominates that game. So, it's not the game to watch. I'm not DVRing it. I would much rather watch an Illinois-Purdue game. And here's what gets me. You just told me before that Northwestern is only down by 3.5. Or Nebraska at Northwestern. Nebraska gets 3.5. You're putting Purdue at Illinois and you're giving Illinois 10.5? That makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me.
No.
I think that Purdue's offense is going to be too much for Illinois.
Yeah.
But, again, Illinois is in this rebuild stage, and you got a bunch of young kids who are now high on life because they've got a win in the Big Ten standings. Right. And Purdue, yes, they've played well with this one quarterback system, but we'll see what they can do. I mean, you've got a Lovie Smith team, and we know he's a defensive guy. And that Illinois defense probably hasn't put it all together yet because they've got a lot of young guys. But what happens when Lovie Smith gets his system and gets these young guys playing in that system? Could they be feisty enough to kind of maybe be a thorn in Purdue's side? I wouldn't go as far as saying they're going to win, but 10.5 is a lot of points when you got two teams, like you said, that are maybe on even keel, are pretty close. So I think Purdue wins, but I wouldn't take the 10.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last game and College Game Day, ESPN College Game Day, going to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Michigan at home against Wisconsin. And Michigan is number 12, Wisconsin number 15. Again, College Game Day is going to Ann Arbor. It's going to be fun. It's the night game, starts at 7:30 Eastern. Michigan is favored, Troy, by 8.5 points, which seems like a lot. I would have guessed like 4.5, 5. 8.5 seems like a lot. That's more than a touchdown, obviously. I'm not going to lock one way or another because I think Michigan wins the game at home. I think they have at least the same defense, and I know they have the better offense, just based on quarterback play, and they've been running the ball well. Obviously not running it as well as Wisconsin, but Michigan can run the ball in general, and quarterback-wise, it's not even close, and playmaker-wise, it's not even really close as far as wide receivers go. Michigan's been really putting things together since the opening loss to Notre Dame. So I believe Michigan's going to win the game. I just don't know if it's going to be by more than 8.5. I'll let you talk about it, Troy.
Well, being a Badger fan, I'm going to put my bias out of it. I'm not going to make a pick on this game, so there's no lock. And I have every right to not make a pick on the game. When you look at this game, which Hornibrook is going to show up? If you think back a couple of weeks when he made that play against Iowa, is that the Hornibrook that's going to play against Michigan? Because he's going to have to make a play with his arm. Because you know Michigan is going to key on Taylor. And I've said this over and over, when Wisconsin plays teams that are the caliber of a Michigan and Ohio State, a Penn State, they're going to take away your strength, which is Taylor. You've got to put the ball into your quarterback's hand. I've seen Hornibrook do it, but I've also seen him poo the bed. Which Hornibrook is going to show up? If Hornibrook can make some plays, they can hang in this game. They've got to move the sticks. And when I say Hornibrook's got to make plays, Kevin, I'm not talking about these big splash plays. I'm not talking about 70-yard bombs. I'm not talking about 35-yard crossing patterns. I'm talking about making good, accurate throws on third down to move the stick.
Right. I was just going to say, when it's 3rd and 7 and the crowd is going nuts and Wisconsin's down 20-14 and they need a drive in the fourth quarter, make the throw, make the pass. Prove that you are worthy of being the starting quarterback for potentially a top 10 team. So that to me is going to be the
do it. We've seen him do it, Kevin. He just doesn't do it consistently. Right. And so is he going to show up? And he's on the road, and he's done it before on the road. But I just don't know. I can't take any Monopoly money out from under my board and put it on Hornibrook. Now, a little analogy. People will say I'm a hater. I don't hate him. He's just not been consistent. And my analogy here, if we go back to our radio shows that we do on Saturday, Kevin, I talked about the Milwaukee Brewers. And I kept saying, prove it to me, prove it to me, prove it to me. Until you prove it to me, I'm not getting back on the bandwagon. They proved it to me, Kevin. I kept saying, are they going to collapse in September? Are they going to collapse? They didn't this year. So people say I'm a fair weather fan. I'm not a fair weather fan. I base things off history. And the prior 2 years, the Brewers were in first place and crumbled to the bottom. Well, not literally to the bottom, but they crumbled their lead away.
Yeah.
And so this year they proved it to me. They took a step. So now they've proven it to me. But I still think they have deficiencies, and I know this isn't a baseball show, but they're in the NLDS or NLCS. And they have some deficiencies yet, but they played well, and they didn't crumble. So I need Hornibrook to do the same thing for me now. Prove it to me. week in, week out, that you can make the throws on 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 or even 3rd and 5, Kevin, because we know Michigan's defense is good, and Taylor's going to get a couple good runs.
Right.
But for the most part, he's going to get bottled up. It's going to be 3 yards here, 4 yards there. Hornibrook is going to have to loosen the defense up. And if they can do it early and make a few of these throws, then Wisconsin can hang around. But it's at home. This Wisconsin defense, not fully in sync.
Right.
A lot of new pieces, a lot of new parts, a lot of new starters. So they're there. They've got a good system. They've got good players. They can play good defense. But you gave up a ton of points to Nebraska. You gave up points to Iowa. Michigan, take both Iowa and Nebraska, combine their offense, and Michigan's is even better than that. So Michigan's going to score points. Wisconsin is going to have to score. So it comes down to you're going to put the ball in Hornibrook's hand, because if you can try to make it a low-scoring game with Taylor and control the time of possession. But I think Michigan can take that away. Michigan's going to tempt you, Paul Chryst, to put the ball in Hornibrook's hands, as they should.
Yep.
Prove it. And that's what I'm saying. If he can step up and be the man, then Wisconsin can maybe make this a game and maybe go to Ann Arbor and get the upset. To me, Kevin, that line is way out of whack, though. Way out of whack, showing no respect to Wisconsin at this point. Going on the road, you mentioned 4.5. I thought that would have been a fair line. This line, to me, is out of whack, and I'm not just being a Badger lover and saying, oh, yeah, you're a Badger lover. That's why you don't like the line. No. Wisconsin's number 15. Yeah, they had an early season loss, but Wisconsin's a good team, Kevin. Are they a top 10 team? When Hornibrook's on top of his game, yes, they are. Defensively, they've got to get better, but they're going to. They've got young guys, new guys in a system, and every week they're showing improvement. But they did give up points to Iowa. They did give up points to Nebraska, and maybe that's what the line setters are seeing. That, hey, they're giving up points to two teams that are not as good offensively as Michigan. But it's still Wisconsin, and they're still a good team. That's all I got. I know I stayed a little bit longer, and I know we're on a time constraint, so let's wrap her up, youngster.
It's all good. My last thing, I think Wisconsin can make a college football playoff still. I think that if they win at Michigan with College Game Day being there and everyone watching Saturday Night Football, and this would be a big win. And if they kept winning and winning and winning and winning and beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, I think they're in. I don't think they're out necessarily just yet. I think one more loss, absolutely. But I don't think they're necessarily out yet. I think this would be a huge win. They would easily go into the top 10, and then you just keep on winning, and eventually beat Ohio State, because that's who's probably going to be there in the Big Ten title game, would be huge. So I think college football playoff-wise, I think they're still in it. Even though they're 15, they've got a few big games ahead, this being the second most important, and Ohio State would be the most important. But I think if I don't believe, like you said, Troy, I think the line is too high. I think they're not giving Wisconsin enough love. I think both these teams are just about evenly matched. I just like Michigan's offense a little more. But in general, if Wisconsin won the game, it wouldn't surprise me at all. It just comes down to Hornibrook proving that he is good enough. And he has done it in the past. He's just inconsistent. If Hornibrook plays well, I would pick Wisconsin to win. I just don't think he plays well.
Well, you can't put your money on it. You can't. Because, again, it's not week in and week out.
Right.
That's where we're at. But for the fans listening in, if I'm taking Monopoly money and the youngster says you have to make a bet, I mean, you got to look at that line. Both the youngster and I think it's out of whack. Again, I said I'm not going to pick this game. I'm not going to pick against the spread. Just putting my bias out of it. I gave you my insight in this. You confirmed the insight. Excuse me. Getting all worked up here because I know Hornibrook can play well. I need him to play well against Michigan as a fan. Just do it for Bucky Badger, Hornibrook. Just do it. Go out and play the way we know you could play. But he doesn't do it every week. That's all I got.
Yep. That's all I got as well. Going to be a fun Saturday night game to watch. I think Illinois-Purdue could be entertaining. And when Michigan State beats Penn State, obviously, that'll be entertaining too. Interesting slating.
The old man said take Penn State in the points, so you know something wacky's going to go on in that game.
Yeah.
You know for a fact something wacky's going to happen because the old man has no doubt it for Penn State. And when the old man has no doubt, that's when the world seems to crumble. But with that said, everybody, make sure you find us on Twitter at TroyRobert967. Find the youngster at KidCunny, KIDCUNI, and make sure you follow our show handle at Youngster Old Man. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll get back at you next week via The Grueling Truth. Have a good day, everyone.